influence on your current and next attempts. So your past experience, if it's an accumulation of negative interactions, those act to hold you back from communicating better the next time. Right? So again, your past experience can impact your the gap between husband and wife. If the gap exists, resentment can impact the desire. The fact that I know we're getting nowhere with this, we've tried this before, it's this feeling of hopelessness and helplessness. But that's a result of the negative cycle. It's not the result of your spouse. If I can smear in your minds this one fact, your spouse is not your enemy, but there is an enemy in the relationship. Do you happen to know who the enemy is in the relationship? Huh? So what in Christianity or in faith we call Satan. But Satan has many forms, right? Satan can appear in different forms. What's the form he appears in as the third person in the marriage, affecting your relationship with your spouse, making you think that your spouse is the enemy. Your spouse is the problem. What's that form of Satan?
Insecurity.
Insecurity? Pride? Ego? Jealousy? Selfishness? These are all things that you feel, but there is actually an entity in the marriage that you have to be very careful of. We call it the negative cycle. So when you got married, your relationship was born. What do you do when you have a little infant at home, when you give birth to a baby? What do you do? You give all your attention to the baby, right? Both of your attention goes to the baby. You make sure you wake up a few times during the night to feed the baby, right? Think of your marriage as old as, obviously, the time you got married. So if you were married last year, how old is your relationship? 1 year. What do you do to a 1-year baby? Okay, if you've been married for 15 years, you have a teenager at home. That teenager is your marriage. What's at the age of 15 to 20, teenagers do what? They go crazy, they rebel, they want something different, midlife crisis, all that stuff. So you pay attention to your relationship. Now, the thing is, as soon as your relationship starts, the interaction between the two of you begins. And the one that pushes itself in is called the negative cycle. What's the negative cycle? I will bring it up in a few slides. Just remember this, there is a third entity in the marriage. You either discover it together and call it for what it is, a negative cycle, and both of you begin to join effort against it, or it will grow and both of you will weaken. Just keep that in mind as I show the next few slides. So, when I cannot say I feel needy, I feel weak, I feel sad, I feel fearful, guys here, men here, what do you think about turning to your wives and say, I feel needy? I need your attention. You okay with that?
Yes.
Yes?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Good. Anybody else would like to join? Jimmy? Is it Jimmy?
Jimmy.
Yeah. Jimmy? It's not easy for people to say, I mean, even for women. You know, you sit down with ladies and they say, I don't like when I feel I'm needy. Because maybe they were brought up in their family, they don't say I need. You know, I remember meeting with some people saying, I cannot say I need. I need, this is completely out of my vocab. I can't say it. But imagine with me, you are needy at times. You are sad at times. You are hurt at times, powerless. All these things. You feel shame, guilt, dependent. And it becomes, if you're not able to say all this, you're not able to say these when you are actually feeling needy or weak. Instead of that, it's not easy to say that, so instead of that, you become judgmental, you become distancing, you avoid, you withdraw, you reject, and so on. I want you to turn to your sheets. The last page, I think, it says, how do you feel today? The last page, I think. So I want you to take 3 minutes, 4 minutes max, turn to your spouse, and tell them how do you feel today. And use the model we applied in yesterday's exercise. I feel this, this, and that, and your spouse will hear you and will paraphrase back to you what they heard you say, and then switch. So,
Just one feeling?
you can start with one, and then if there is another feeling after your spouse has had the turn, you can say it again. You can say yours again. Use that grid, use those emojis to tell your spouse how you're feeling right now. So forget today, it's about right now. Turn to them, turn to one another. Don't talk to each other with your sides like that. Turn to one another squarely. Use mine, I'm not using it. Do we have to begin at the turn?
I'm the implementer. This is an
Turn.
There you go. Very good. Turn to an empty chair.
Mechanical. I feel right now happy because we just had a wonderful breakfast and just feel happy. So what I hear you say is that right now you feel so happy and it has to do with the breakfast. It was really wonderful for you. Is that correct? Yes, it is. Repeat. Okay? I want to see robots here. Okay? Because after that, you won't be robots in the real world. It will come naturally. Just follow. I'm coming. Okay? So you all feeling? Huh? You've all been able to share some feelings. Have you had turns? Most of you? All of you? Good. Just a show of hands. Just a show of hands. How many of you have not had a real chance to tell your spouse how you feel in a moment of time, like in the morning, for example, or in the afternoon? How many of you have not had the chance to actually express your feeling? Everybody else, you're able to? Okay. We don't take the time, you know. And the other thing I wanted to put out there is that some spouses, some of you guys are morning people. Others are not. And so if you're a morning person, that means you draw energy by making sure things are, spoken about in the morning and take care of everything in the morning. And your spouse is not a morning person, and you don't take care of that. You don't see that and don't understand that. One spouse will feel like they're talking a lot, and they feel neglected by their partner, who's not talking much in the morning. Whereas if you understand that and synchronize maybe the time when both of you can actually talk, that might improve your connection. Communication is about connection. Let me now go to the feedback loops. Remember this from yesterday? Interpretation versus action. What's visible? What's visible to the others? To the other is the action part. What's not visible? Interpretation. Where does interpretation take place? Inside of me. So each one of us can say that. Inside of me, inside of my own mind. So, the actions are very logical. The actions, right here, are very logical. To whom? So the husband's action are very logical to whom? To themselves, because they are born out of their own interpretation. And their actions sometimes are very illogical to whom? To the wives, because they cannot see what's going on in their mind. So let's take an example. Just a dramatized example. So we'll follow the numbers. Number 1, down here. So the husband is late. He's been coming late from work lately. And it just so happens that he has a new secretary in the office. And so the wife says, "Why didn't you call to let me know that you will be late?" Wife, that's her action. Husband interprets this in his own mind. She wants to control me and overpower me. Now, I left my mom a long time ago. I don't have to tell anyone where I'm going. So she wants to control me. She wants to overpower me. He begins to act and says, "Why are you acting like my mother?" When he says this, she interprets that he must be hiding something from me. Why is he being defensive? When she thinks this way, she gets angry and suspicious and begins to nag. When she begins to nag, he begins to think she doesn't trust me. Here we go again. When he thinks this way, he withdraws. When he withdraws, now she's thinking it must be something he cannot confront me with. And she nags some more. You see how that cycle is perpetual, but negatively. Okay? Now, these cycles could turn positively. He brings her flowers, or he calls her, or he does something nice to her. I'm starting with the husband, I could start with the wife. She thinks, wow, he really loves me. He knows I like flowers, and he got me flowers today. He knows it's a stressful day at work for me, and yet he still called me today, or sent me a prayer in the morning, said, "You're in my prayer today. I know you're going through some tough stuff." She begins to interpret that as, wow, he cares about me. So she, surprises him with something. He likes it very much. He says, wow, we're close. That's pretty good. He does something positive, and so on. Now, how can you break a negative cycle? Do you have negative cycles in your relationships? Or all your relationships are positive? Huh? Are you all in your nothing box? Seriously. Go away. Do you have negative cycles?
Yes.
How do you break your negative cycle?
You gotta realize they exist.
Huh?
You gotta realize what it is.
Thank you. The first thing is you have to start thinking differently. The enemy is not your spouse. The problem is not your spouse. You know that spouse who just neglected you? He's not or she's not the enemy. Something led my spouse to do that, and that led my spouse to do that is the negative cycle. Are you following me? There is an invisible enemy in the relationship. And that enemy, its only purpose is to part you, set you apart. And that's the interaction. So how do you break it? First, you recognize the negative cycle is what we should both be after. Okay, what's the next step, you think, to breaking the cycle? Simply from looking at the grid. Talk, do what? Yes, that's true, Christina. Talk about your interpretation. That's still true. That is, talk, it's the stuff that's going on here has to speak the unspoken. Say, you know what? It's been a while now, you haven't been coming home on time, and I'm getting a little bit worried, and a little bit more than that, but just to start, I'm getting a little bit worried. What's going on? I don't mean to nag you. So wives could say that. I don't mean to act like your mom. You know, I don't. But maybe that's going to cause a problem. I don't mean to nag you. I don't mean to nag you. But I'm really worried. What's going on? Nothing. I just got late and been having a lot of work lately. Yeah, I know. How about that secretary you have now? Huh? You're jealous a little bit. You're worried. Say it. Say it. Say, I'm a bit worried, you know? What's going on there? You have nothing to worry about there. I'm just following that example. So you either make your interpretation, you question your interpretation, you make it known, or you question it. So the wife here could have explained what's going on in her mind. I'm worried, you're getting late, you're coming late, the husband feels controlled, can say, Mary, what's going on? I feel like you're controlling me a little bit, or I feel controlled every time you ask me these questions. What's going on? Is there something worrying you? Instead, what do husbands do? Usually, they push back. Right? So what's going on? I'm caring for my wife here. What's going on? Something is worrying you. What's going on? You know, this is not the usual you. It's been you lately, but it's not the usual you. What's going on? He says, well, I'm worried. I'm concerned. So interpretation is one. Where else can you break the cycle?
Positive action.
Yeah, or you're about to do something negative, such as ask, like, why are you being like my mother? Or you're withdrawing and leaving and going into your nothing box. Instead of doing that, stick around. There are 3 negative cycles, and I'm wondering if you would agree with me on those. When you are in a disagreement, or when there is an active issue between the two of you, one of the common therapies for a couple have identified 3 main cycles. One is called find out who the bad guy is. That cycle is about trying to prove yourself right and correct and your partner wrong. And it goes back and forth. Have you had these cycles happen in your relationship where you're arguing back and forth trying to prove you're right, but you are wrong? That's called finding the bad guy. That's a negative cycle. How do these usually end? End up with a fight, not talking to one another. Okay. So there is the find out who the bad guy is, or finding the bad guy. So you keep saying, no, that's not what I said, but you did this, you did that. No. How can you think this way? That never happened. It's actually you who said this, and then you enter into, like I said yesterday, court case. Each one with their evidence. That's called finding the bad guy. That's one of the negative cycles. The second one is called the dancing polka. How do you dance polka? Anyone knows? Abuna's talking about dancing a lot. What's going on? It's an analogy. It's just an analogy. Dancing polka is when you move forward, your partner moves backward. So it's synchronized. So the polka, basically, this interaction is when I nag, you withdraw. The more you withdraw, the more I nag. So it seems like you're doing opposite things, but the more you do this, the more I do that. The more you keep texting me, the more I will ignore you. So it's basically coming after and running away type of dance. How many of you have experienced that? Yeah, where you polarize one another. Yes? No?
Yes.
Yeah. The third one is called withdraw, withdraw. And that's when you really get hectic. Eventually, you just, both of you, withdraw. So it's not like you're withdrawing and someone says, what's going on? Why you're not talking to me? Talk to me. I don't want to talk right now. What do you mean you don't want to talk? Talk. Let's talk about this now. No, I don't want to talk. The withdraw is, who cares? I don't want to talk anymore. Both. And this is one of the most dangerous ones. Because then both of them are actually checked out. Not completely checked out, but eventually could be completely checked out. And in our relationship, we go through all three dances at different times. So if you're a withdraw, don't worry. Just you need to do something about it. If you're a polka, dancing the polka, you need to change the action. You need to change that polarization. If you're finding the bad guy, well, you need to, just calm down and get de-escalated, because when you're escalated, nothing good happens. When you're up here, nothing good happens. So I invite you to think about these three negative cycles. When do they happen? What triggers them to happen? Remember what I said yesterday? If you go from 0 to 100 in less than 3 seconds, someone has pushed what? Your button. And this is what begins the cycle. So when you notice your partner going 0 to 100, say, hold on, I must have pushed something now. That's a caring spouse. Try and do it to your spouse. Now, as I'm saying this, I'm almost 100% sure each one is saying, oh, I wish my husband is hearing this, or I wish my wife is hearing this. No, I wish I am hearing this. Do you get what I'm saying? We have to get into the mindset, these words, I wish my husband would hear. No, it's you that I'm speaking to, not your partner. In a way, I'm speaking to both of you. Okay. Okay, let's have some fun with this. Verbal communication, non-verbal, contextual. So, verbal or digital is these are the actual words you say. I love you. I love you is the digital. I love you. But it is meaningless without the analog part, the non-verbal. How do you look when you say I love you? When you go like this, I love you. Versus, I love you. I saw this clip, I think it was about a director who was teaching an actress to say I love you. Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
Well, he kept repeating it, to the point that the actress, she started tearing up and telling him I love you, almost like she actually loves him. I said, say it again. I love you. Again. I love you. Again. And by the 15th time or the 16th time, it was coming out of her heart. Right? So what's going on? There's something called the analog, the tone. Watch your tone. Your tone actually makes a big deal. So if you say to someone, I am really worried about you, versus I'm worried about you. The first one, I'm really worried about you. What's this telling you? What is it conveying? Compassion, care. I'm really worried about you. What's that conveying? That you're doing something you're wrong to start before we say a thing. Right? So your tone of voice, your body expressions, outside the words themselves, and the context. If you're telling your wife in bed, I love you, versus on your way out from the house, say, I love you. This might mean one thing, this might mean another. Context is very important. Context is very important. So when you communicate, keep these three in mind. Verbal, 7% influential. So the actual words you say are only 7% influential. The way you say them, the tone and the language mark the rest of the influence of what you're saying. 38% and 55% body language.
Can you turn the slide back one more
Mhm.
second?
I will make this presentation available to you as well.
We'll send out the.
Yeah.
Oh.
So the words you say without its analogical component are very non-specific. So if you say the garbage is piling up, what does it mean?
Take it out.
Huh?
But that's not
Do you
what
expect
you
me to take out the garbage?
Do you expect me to take out the garbage?
That's just a comment.
Yeah. Actually, just putting the garbage is piling up, what does it mean? Mina put it in context. And then he interpreted, he gave it meaning. But does it mean anything right now?
It's a garbage.
The garbage is piling up, well, let's put it in context. If I'm sitting in the kitchen and my teenage son and I am looking straight at him, it may mean your job is to take the garbage out, do something about it now. But if I'm driving up in our area in Canada, Muskoka Woods, and with my 30-year-old son, and I'm driving and saying, the garbage is piling up. I mean what? Well, look, the city isn't doing its job. Right? No, it doesn't mean get out of the car. Not for your 30-year-old son. Huh?
No, out of the house.
But you see what I'm saying here? Context is critical. I love you. What does it mean?
Who's you? Could be a sandwich, it could be a.
Exactly. If you're saying to your spouse, I love you, what does it mean? See, I have to define the object of that love. Or the subject of that love. What does I love you mean? No one really knows until you start putting it in context. I love you, or just get out of my face.
Oh.
You know, like you could say, I love you. Like what? You just, get out. Get out of my face. Context and tone of voice. Honey, I'm tired. What does that mean? Leave me alone. Allow. What else? Honey, I'm tired.
You could make the
Can you help me with something?
Make the dinner tonight.
Can you make the dinner tonight? I'm tired.
I need a massage.
Hmm?
I need a massage.
I need a massage. Hmm.
Don't ask me for anything else.
Don't ask me for anything else.
Only the women are tired.
Huh?
Only the women are tired.
Only the women are tired. Honey, I'm tired.
Take care of the kids.
Take care of the kids. You see how you had so many different interpretations of something as simply as digital-wise, it's so simple. Honey, I'm tired. But you see, there's so many meanings. They come through filters that you have in your mind. You're doing such a great job. What does that mean?
Maybe next time you could do better.
Maybe next time you could do better. You see, that's not written, but it's heard. Huh? You are doing such a great job. You're doing such a great job.
I'll get it next time.
I'll get it next time. That's what you're getting from that message, right? Or it's very hard to please this person. So hard to please. Or, oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you for recognizing that. It all depends on filters. And if your filter isn't healthy, or it's been hurt and it's been damaged over the years in a certain interaction that you could even have with your own family, not with your spouse, that filter is going to interpret things in a quote-unquote negative way or positive way, and so on. The point that I'm making here is that we have to explain what we mean. And we have to watch our nonverbals. I will show you what I mean. I'll show you what I mean.
Something I did it wrong.
So you did something wrong. Okay?
I'm warning you.
I'm warning you.
I didn't explain myself well enough.
I didn't explain myself well enough. So in a presentation like this, if I tell you, I'll show you what I mean, I think you're all okay with that. But one-on-one, if I'm coming up, let's say, to Mina and say, Mina, I'll show you what I mean. So communication is one of the hardest tasks that a couple can do. And most couples, when they do not communicate well, like even here, they come hard on themselves. And the harder you come down on yourself, the worse the next communication will be. So take it easy. It's okay if you're not communicating very well. It is good to try and communicate differently. But don't say, oh, this is not, I'm not getting through to him. I'm not able to get her to understand me. And then all these words and these noises actually make the communication harder the next time. So, watching the nonverbal and the context is meaning producing to the words that are being said. So let's take, and you define the person. So tell me, what's happening here? Yeah, what's happening?
He's blaming her.
Huh?
He's blaming,
Warning. Megan.
I say he's blaming her on something.
He's blaming her on something.
And she's ignoring her.
And she's ignoring him.
Not this again.
See, there's the I told you so look from him or her? From him. And what's her look saying? Whatever. She's, like someone said earlier, she looks like she checked out. See, there are no words there. But you see how powerful the way we look. The way we look, just, this is a picture. No words coming out. Just the way we look says a lot. So we have to watch how we look when we speak to our spouse. We have to be very careful how this looks. Next one. Ready for this one? That's not a knife. That's a carrot, but sharp. What's going on?
He's saying, are you bringing this up again?
Are you bringing this up again?
I didn't do it.
I didn't do it.
Defending himself.
He's defending himself. Did you notice the women are talking on behalf of the men? Of the men? Yeah, that's very good. Excellent. Next.
Is that a knife in her hand?
Is that a knife in your hands? What's going on here? Don't you know I'm allergic to carrots? Is that what's going on? You bought the wrong carrot. I think we're taking this too far. If you're the husband, look at your sheets of feelings. What feeling are you getting out of her facial expression? How are you feeling? Not how she's feeling. How are you feeling looking at her this way? Looking at her and she's looking at you this way. Look at your sheet. And wives, please do the same. What are you feeling, men?
How do I feel about her?
So if you are the man in that picture, looking at her face, how are you feeling? What's your feeling looking at her face? Not how she feels, how are you feeling as a man looking at your wife when she looks like this?
Shocked, surprised, and afraid.
Yeah, shocked, surprised, afraid. And usually, if you don't mind me asking, Reda, and I think that could be general, when you are shocked, surprised, afraid, what do you tend to do?
Protect yourself.
You tend to protect yourself. And sometimes when we protect ourselves, we do what? Either we withdraw or we throw the bomb and withdraw. We shout and leave. Or what?
Heard that.
Yeah, so drop the bomb and then go to hide somewhere. It's a war strategy.
So is it wrong if someone's holding a carrot
Yes.
and I start laughing? Because I'll just start cracking up.
Yeah.
I have a problem, right?
I don't know. It also depends. Let me say that. If you take a bite out of the carrot and you start laughing about this.
Okay, no, let's go, okay, so, no, here's the thing.
Yeah, talk about it. Yes, please talk about it. Yeah, it's a safe place. Only on
It's a
YouTube.
2-hour drive home, I don't know.
Right.
No.
Someone.
The whole communication is, like, when I'm angry, I get angry. He starts laughing, because he thinks it's funny. Yeah, just like that. Because I don't get, I try not to get angry very often, but when I do, he's like, you should see yourself, you look funny. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I don't, that's
But
why
I don't say anything bad, I just smile.
you just laugh. You
Yeah.
laugh.
I wanna actually use this as an example, if you allow me.
My pleasure.
Yeah, go ahead. Did you notice Jimmy saying, all I do is... Did you see that? We all men do that. I didn't say anything. And one of the laws of communication is you always communicate. There is not a single time where you're not communicating a meaning. So this, I didn't say anything, or the laughter actually communicated something to her. What does that communicate to you? When you're angry, he laughs.
He's not listening to me or validating me.
Right? All what he's doing is, but I'm just laughing. Right? And we all identify with Jimmy. I mean, all men do. We're always innocent. We're always innocent. But we know that our laughter has actually communicated something that was perceived negatively to our spouse. And that's what I'm talking about. Let us leave the surface and let's go a little bit deeper into the meaning of what we do. Because it is in those that we, if we're opening up on these things, that we will bond and understand one another a lot better. Thank you for that example. Appreciate it.
So at that point, are we supposed to take a sense of accountability of the perception more than the action?
Absolutely.
So there
Yes.
should be
We take
accountability
account
of
of,
how people perceive.
we're accountable to the fact that, hold on, I'm part of that relationship, so I'm accountable to what goes between us. To say, well, that's your way of thinking, that's not my problem, doesn't work in a relationship. So to say, you know what, this is how you feel, and if I put myself in your shoes, I think I would not be happy if you were to laugh when I'm serious. Isn't that the truth? Right? So, and that's another thing. Remember the part where your spouse want to make sure she's not crazy? So sometimes when you say, well, I really don't feel I would react this way. That's not me. Yeah, that's not you. But it's her. Or that's not you, that's him. So you have to leave room for your spouse to actually be who she or he is. And respect that. And work with that. So often we want conformity. You gotta be like me. Keep trying. It's not gonna work. Someone's gonna die in the relationship. Someone's gonna die. Does this answer your question right?
Yeah, but I just want to take it one more notch, might be a little bit outside the,
Go ahead.
we're talking about just spouses, but is there also boundary in relationships outside the, I mean, between colleagues?
No.
between
So
family
let me even
members?
clarify within the relationship. Even though you allow space and you understand what's going on, but you're not held accountable or responsible in the sense that you have to fix it for someone. They can feel the way they feel. And I can respond in a way, obviously, that shows care, definitely, but I can't guilt myself unnecessarily for someone else's interpretation. I can understand how you might understand it this way, and I'll be careful, but I don't feel guilty having said what I said, and you felt this way about what I said. See, this idea of you made me feel is bad communication. No one makes you feel anything. Do you get that? So, you made me angry. No. You did something that may have triggered me, and I decided to be angry. So I take accountability of my action and don't put it on someone else. Okay? So again, with someone on the outside, college or work, I can understand, hold on, the way I spoke the other day in the meeting may have caused someone to be uncomfortable. Okay, I get it. I'll be careful. But at the same time, this had to be spoken up so clearly and openly, and maybe my tone of voice was a little bit, sharp. I'll take care of that. Right? So the accountability is where I may have gone, quote unquote, wrong, and at the same time, if I haven't, and yet someone else felt a certain way, that's them, their feeling. So I'll give you an example that happens with us as priests in a busy church where there's a high number of people, large number of congregation. We get someone, and I'm like very quick moving from one liturgy to the second to give communion, and I passed by and didn't say hello to somebody. And that person came later and said, Abuna, are you upset at me? No, not at all. Because you didn't say hello when you passed by me. I felt ignored. So, I did not mean for you to feel ignored. I'm sorry you felt ignored. But I'm not sorry I ignored you because I didn't. Do you understand that? But at the same time, I'm sorry you felt ignored because absolutely, I love you so much. I was just in a rush to give communion. Do you get what I'm saying? You take accountability, you take ownership of your action, you pay attention to other people and you give room for their feelings. Again, so often in relationship we say, no, you shouldn't feel this way. You should not feel upset about it. Why? The person felt upset about it. They felt upset about it. Let's talk about that.
So you have to recognize that.
You have to recognize it, yes.
Not dismiss it and say that you shouldn't feel
You should not dismiss it. You should not dismiss it yet. So you should recognize and say, okay, well, I guess we think differently. I probably would not feel upset, but I can see how you're upset. I can see how this would upset you. And then maybe we can talk now. You've been upset about this for a while, and it's not helping you. Are you thinking of something different? How are you going to interact with that person again at work who made you upset? Like you help them deal with their stuff. So often again, spouses, especially men, they take on the problems of their spouses as if they have to do something about it. Men in the room here, it's good for you to listen to your wives, and it's good to try and maybe discuss the matter, but don't take it on yourselves as a heavy burden. Because then you try and get your spouse to do something, and your wife can think of 10 different solutions better than the one you're sharing. And all they need is someone to listen, and at times they need someone to give them solutions. But you have to recognize when that happens. And you could ask your spouse, so I know you've come with this issue and we talked about it before. What do you need from me? What do you need the most? Don't say, so what do you need from me? No. Like, what do you need right now? Do you want me to just hear you out? Or do you want us to think of some solutions? And your wife will tell you, no, I don't want to, it's been a tough day. If your wife says, oh, it's been a tough day, or I hate this so much. If you hear feeling words, most likely your wife is telling you, just listen to me. Okay? If your wife says, I don't know what to do, I've tried a few things, but every time I try something, it's not working. Please, do not give them a next solution. Just say, what have you tried? What worked? What hasn't worked? What are you thinking? Learn the art of asking questions. These are questions that can help your spouse think clearer. Okay, does this help with the question? Okay. We can take a break in 10 minutes. Can we take a break in 10 minutes? Do you want to take a break now? Take a break now? Take a break now. Okay? Take a break now for 15 minutes. We'll be back at 12:35.
Oh, is that final?
So let's try and do some of these workshops together. These are scenarios for communication. Let's go through them and talk a little bit about obstacles of communication. Obstacles, not hearing the other person, feeling not heard by the other person. The exercise we've been doing is all about making sure that you actually heard your spouse. And what you need to do in order to hear your spouse is actively suspending your thought.
But not going into your nothing.
No, nothing box is, the nothing box means I'm not gonna hear you, I won't hear you, you're not what? Like that's not. But actively suspending your thought. So often in our communication, we want to say something because of what we just heard. So if your spouse says, you know, I feel a little bit upset today, your immediate reaction is, why are you upset? You want to find out. This is just a very simple example of how we don't listen to one another. Or we listen, but we don't listen actively. Active listening is about suspending the thought that is nagging you that you need to say and tell right now. So let's say your partner, your spouse, comes to you and says, you know, I feel really upset because of what happened today at church in the morning. You know, you left me, and you just went on and spoke to your family, and I felt, you know, I was standing all by myself. I mean, if you can actually say all of this, that's wonderful. But to start saying, I didn't leave you by yourself, that's not listening. See, you want to say, I'm not bad. It always stems from a good place. Hey, I'm not bad. I didn't mean to. But obviously, that's not what's coming out. What's coming out is defense. You're defending yourself. You have to actively suspend what you are so dying to say and listen to your partner. Are you guys following what I'm saying? Bite your tongue. And listen carefully, and then make sure you tell your spouse what you heard. And check, is that what it is? Because sometimes, and that's what we're going to talk about here, we have filters. We only hear what we wanted to hear. Or we just hear what we're conditioned to hear. Okay, so let's look at some filters, some obstacles. So here we have the problem of filters. Will and Tanya. I want to make this bigger. I tried to make it bigger. Not too big. Okay. So let's read through this. Will, thinking he'd like to go out to dinner with Tanya as she comes in the door. He says, what should we do for dinner tonight? So, Will is thinking he'd like to go out to dinner with Tanya. As she comes in the door, he says, what should we do for dinner tonight? I'm going to run through it first, and then I'm going to ask you, where do you think some of the stuff could have been done differently? And think of your own selves. Huh? Tanya, hearing, when will dinner be ready? She just walked in, huh? Why is it always my job to make dinner? Will, hearing her response as an attack, and thinking, why is she always so negative? Says, it's not always your job to make dinner. I made dinner last week. Tanya, negative cycle continues. So, let me go through it first. As Tanya tends to think she does everything around the house, she says, bringing hamburgers and fries is not making dinner, Will. Will, with frustration mounting, just forget it. I didn't want to go out with you anyway. Tanya, confused, not remembering him saying anything about going out. You never said anything about wanting to go out. Will, feeling really angry, yes, I did. I asked you where you wanted to go out to dinner, and you got really nasty. Tanya, I got nasty? You never said anything about going out. Did too. You're never wrong, are you? Oh, don't you start this sarcasm again. You hear what you only want to hear. beloved therapists. Help Tanya and Will. What's going on? Based on everything so far we spoke about. Walk me through what's going on. But try, well, I guess start anywhere you want. But if you could be from the top down, that's good. If not, that's okay. Yes, Rena.
You didn't use the mechanics of confirming what you heard.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
You did not use the mechanic of confirming what you heard the first time.
Okay.
What you heard the first time.
Yeah, there was no check-in on what's being said.
Will should have specified that he wanted to go.
Yeah, Will was not assertive enough. And this is an exercise that you have in your book, which you can do. If we don't get to do it here, you can do it on your own. Is that, I think it's on page 4. It's on page 4 and page 5. On page 4, it says, assertiveness is the ability to express your feelings and ask for what you want in your relationship. And you speak for yourself, I. So, what could have Will said that would have been more assertive? I would love to take you out for dinner.
Like, where would you like to go out to dinner?
Where would you like to go out to dinner? That's good. And I would say, hold on, he wants to go out for dinner. So assertiveness is my ability to express what I want and feel. Tanya, I would really like to go out for dinner. What do you think? Or where would you like to go? Assuming that she might, she's nodding her head. Okay? So that exercise here on page 4, it's training yourselves to have a wish list, things you want in your marriage, and the ability to tell your spouse, I wish for us to do this. And I would really highly recommend you say, I wish for us, rather than saying, at least not to start, saying, I would like you to change in this. Right? You could say, I wish we had more time, quality time together. And I know you're busy. Remember, think of what your spouse might be concerned with. Are you blaming me for not spending? Because I know I'm the one who's working a lot of hours. So by you saying that, you begin to interpret it in a different way. So sometimes you have to say, I know you're doing your best. Because I love to spend time with you. I wish we would have more quality time together. Speak the unspoken stuff. Okay, what else is going on? Yes.
Before the conversation even started, they both had their preconceived notions of what each other's intentions are.
Yes, preconceived notions, that's a filter. And that comes from previous negative cycle interactions. It's almost like you're reading your spouse before they do anything. This is how they'll think. And you could be right, it doesn't mean you're wrong, but it's not helpful. So they have preconceived ideas. What's Will's preconceived idea? She's negative. Therefore, anything that will come out of her mouth will most likely be negative. What's Tanya's preconceived ideas?
Never wrong. That he's never wrong.
Then he's never wrong. You always make yourself look right at the end. Now, maybe 8 out of 10 couples here would say that's their experience of their spouse. They're never wrong. Which of the 3 negative cycles that I mentioned will produce that feeling that my spouse is never wrong? Or thinks he's never wrong or she's never wrong? Which of the 3? Do you remember the 3 cycles?
Yes.
Who's the bad guy? The dancing polka and the withdraw. So which of those?
Finding the bad guy.
Yeah, finding the bad guy. It's always about justifying myself, and in doing so, I have to make sure you're wrong. Okay, what else is going on here?
Maybe she thinks Will has high expectations. That's why she heard in her mind, when you dinner be ready.
Right.
He's expecting.
So there is a little bit of role definition here, where it is expectation of the role that she's the one responsible for preparing and making the food. And so when he asked, what should we do for dinner tonight? She heard this as, what have you cooked for us today? Or what, did you prepare dinner or not yet? And she's coming from work. We never know what was going on at work. But it could have been something difficult, or it's been a long day, or she's been blamed for something. Like she's coming already with some other filters. Why is she always so negative? It's always your job to make it. I made dinner once last week. He got burgers. And fries. Tell me about the negative cycle. Which negative cycle is happening here? Yeah, who's the bad guy? Just going, and it's escalating.
What kind of the polka dance are you talking about?
So where do you see the polka dance?
Because the part when she's getting defensive about it's not my job, because like bringing burgers is not my job, so she's nagging, he's stepping back or whatever.
He's not withdrawing yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. So they're not dancing that dance yet. They're really dancing what? I'm not wrong, you're wrong.
Each other.
Huh?
Trying to one-up each other.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not the one who's wrong. It's you. Why do you see? I'm not. You're negative. You're always negative. So it's actually finding who's bad. At this stage, they're gonna start the dance. You know, bringing home burgers and fries is not making dinner. Will, frustration mounting. Tell me, why is frustration mounting with Will here?
Being rejected.
And she's not aware of it.
Because he had a good intention.
Because he actually wanted to go out. And in his mind he's saying, I wanted to do something good. And yet she sees me as bad. Remember, there are two push buttons. Two main ones. The one for men is always, the one for women is always, do you love me? Do you care about me? Am I valuable to you? Usually, 9 out of 10. And what's the push button for men? Am I good enough for her? Am I good in her eyes? Does she see me as the good man I always want to be for her? And here when she tells him, Will, all you got was burgers and fries. In his mind now, here we go, she doesn't see me, even the good stuff I tried to do, like stopping to get burgers and fries, she doesn't see that. Confused, not remembering him saying anything about going out. He never said anything about wanting to go out. Now he's really angry. And they begin, you know, yes I did, no you didn't, yes I did, and so on. That's still finding the bad guy. You ready for the next one? Emotional states, Steve and Melissa. That's another obstacle for listening. It's when your emotional state is not preparing you, it's actually an obstacle for you to hearing the other person. So let's read this one. One good defense against filters is to acknowledge those filters when you are aware they're operating. It's dinner time. The kids are hungry and complaining. Steve just got home and is reading the mail. Melissa is cooking macaroni in the kitchen. Steve, this bill for the phone company got missed again. We better get this paid. Melissa, who's preparing macaroni in the kitchen, snapping with anger, I'm not the one who forgot it. Can't you see I have my hands full? Do something helpful. Steve, I'm sorry. I should have seen you were busy. Rough day. Who would like a husband like that?
Yeah.
Who would like Adam and Steve? Like, you want the Steve like that. But obviously not for Adam. You see, Steve here recognized, hold on, this is not my usual wife. Now, I know some of you are thinking, no, that is my usual wife. This is what counseling does to you. This is not my usual wife. She snapped when I asked about the bills. Is something going wrong? And that's why Steve here, he is stopping the negative cycle. The negative cycle could have continued if Steve would have said what, for example?
Relax.
Relax, chill, what's the big deal? I'm not talking to you. Right? But Steve realizes something must have, she snapped, went from 0 to 100 in less than 3 seconds. So he said, I'm sorry, I should have seen you were busy. Rough day. To that, Melissa says, yes, de-escalated. She's now, yes. I had a very frustrating day. I don't mean to snap at you, but I've had it up to here. If I am touchy, it's not really anything you've done. Maybe we can talk about it, after dinner. Thanks. This could have been yet another example why we're not good together. But Steve saved the day. Give it up for Steve. What did Steve do that Melissa could do and the Steves amongst us can do? When you find there is a reaction, unusual, 0 to 100, realize, hold on, something else is happening. And it could be just to unleash what's happening, or to actually uncover what's happening, is to ask, sorry, I didn't mean to bother you, I know you're busy. Rough day. Emotional status can affect the conversation. Any questions on this one? Do you recognize this in your life sometimes? Yes, no? Yes? No?
Yes.
Next. Beliefs and expectations. Al and Heidi. Al and Heidi were having problems deciding what to do for fun when they had free time. They rarely go out to do anything, so both were frustrated. Listen to this typical conversation between them and note how each of them acted as if they could read the other's mind. Al, really wanting to go out bowling, but thinking that Heidi was not interested in going out and doing anything fun together, says, "We have some free time tonight. I wonder if we should try to do something." Heidi, thinking that she would like to get out, but hearing the tentativeness in Al's voice and thinking he really does not want to go out, she says, "Oh, I don't know. What do you think?" Al says, "Well, we could go bowling, but it could be league night and we might not get in anyway. Maybe we should just stay in and watch TV." Heidi thinking, that's what he really wants to do. Just watch TV. She says, "That sounds good to me. Why don't we make some popcorn and watch some too?" Al, disappointing, thinking, I knew it. She really doesn't like to get out and do things that are fun. Yeah, okay. In this conversation, there were no escalation. So they didn't escalate. They didn't get angry at each other. None of that happened. There was no invalidation or withdrawal. Nevertheless, they did not communicate well due to the belief and expectations they each had of the other. I want to go out, but I'm not assertive enough to say, I'd really like to go bowling. Let's go. What do you think? Versus, it was tentative, fear. If fear is controlling your communication, it will make it very difficult. It will make it difficult for you to be assertive. You're afraid of the response. Assertiveness is about overcoming that fear. Say, this is what I would like. And being able to hear back something that is opposite to what you like. That's okay. But this is an example of how if we have preconceived ideas or expectations of the other, because of an experience we've had with them or our own experiences in life, that acts as a filter and an obstacle to proper communication. I think the next one is not a scenario, but it's just differences in style. Sue and Tom came from different families. By the way, these scenarios, you can find them in the book, A Promise, A Lasting Promise. So they're taken out of the book. Sue and Tom came from different families. His family was very expressive and intense about all manner of emotion. Sue's family was more reserved. As a result, a slight raise of voice could mean great anger in Sue's family, whereas it would hardly be noticed in Tom's. In many conversations, therefore, Sue would overinterpret the intensity of Tom's feelings, and Tom often underestimate the strength of Sue's feelings. That's because you come from different worlds, we come from different families. World meaning your family of origin. So here, Sue, really, everything was spoken very softly. So when Tom, who in his family, everything was spoken very in a loud voice, he speaks now to his wife. She thinks he's against her, or like he's, like there must be a problem,
Aggressive.
or he's aggressive, okay? Whereas when she speaks something important, but softly, Tom says, oh, it's probably not important because she's not speaking up, and he might neglect that. So again, your differences in styles can act as an obstacle to communication. I want to get to conflict resolution. Let's talk conflict resolution, which is our last part to do. Well, it is 1 o'clock, so we should stop, right? Or do we have half an hour, right? Do we have half an hour?
No, so we're gonna have lunch.
Lunch. And then we have the, okay.
We could do conflict resolution after.
Conflict resolution will take 20 minutes. 20 minutes to do the exercise you have in there, and that will give you a model of resolving issues. And I want you to think, enjoy your lunch thinking this way. I want you to think about a conflict in your life that isn't too big. Did you hear that? A conflict in your life that isn't too big. Nevertheless, it's a conflict, meaning you're not seeing eye to eye on this. I'll give you an example. The wife wants to, they got back their tax returns and they ended up with some money. I don't know if that happens in the States, but if you end up with some money, you want to do something with it. So the wife wants to put it towards the educational fund for the kids. And the husband wants to just enjoy traveling with his wife and wants to go somewhere fun to spend that money on just vacation time. That's a conflict. It is not too big for them, but nevertheless, we don't know what to do with the fund. I prefer to put it for the kids. Oh no, I prefer to put it for our vacation this year. So I want you to think of something similar to that in your own life. Nothing complicated. Because if you're trying something new, you cannot dump in the hardest conflict you have. In a way, you sabotage the model, so don't do that. So think of a conflict as you're eating lunch and enjoying it. Think of a conflict that isn't too hard, but that you will bring in for our next session, 20 minutes, and then we'll do the closing after. Glory be to God forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you, William. Just another quick comment. We still have the Q&A app open, and the last session we're going to have any last-minute questions. So while you're having lunch, if you have any more questions about this morning's session, please upload it, and we'll go through some of these questions. Okay? Enjoy your lunch.
Oh, you're sitting here. Yeah,
that's funny. Picture of
How big of a
It is, right? They're on call like
It's not only spiritual stuff, it's everything.
It's really hard and sometimes it may not be the most it sounds like you did a very good job so that recently the father has been instilled to the extent that the counting when the priest looked at one of the priests he was counting for him already. This is, of course,
That's what I thought, yes, yeah. But then Devon is there, right?
that wasn't the method. So I think
She's the performance manager there? Yes. Well, yeah,
but on the other hand,
he was telling me, like, these all these positions were eliminated. He didn't. I think his boss, though, had to, like, re-interview for her job. And he actually had to re-interview for his own job, too. Yeah. So I got it. Same job back, yeah. I know. It's crazy. A lot of restructuring. They always do that every couple of years. Won't come to years, I feel like. Like CVS did that last year. They eliminated 300 Yeah. So they eliminated the supervisor position, which is actually a good position, but they didn't eliminate the target channel. Target CVS. So they didn't eliminate the target supervisor, but they eliminated the standalone CVS supervisor. I don't have my, it's not the exact same one, but I think our jobs will go away eventually. Because, so what they did this to have Walgreens like a long time ago, but basically at Walgreens, somebody who manages the drugstore, and then the pharmacy.
Right, but you wish, oh, I wish I had a phone.
And then the person who manages the pharmacy, and then so it's like a pharmacy supervisor. Exactly. So CVS had the same thing. Well, a couple years ago, Walgreens decided that doesn't make sense. We should just make it one person who manages the entire store. And then the pharmacy manager, their manager was that one person. So they did that. So they eliminated the supervisor position in the standalone. We don't have front stores. They can't do that to us. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I think what they're gonna do. It might be fair, but I don't care. I don't think it's good with me. I'm happy with it. But like, I think that they'll eventually take the Target stores and divide them up and give it to the district manager standalone. Because it's, you know, everything with CVS is by dollar. You're gonna take a picture. Oh, you did? In the bookstore? For Noah or for you? Noah likes the little typeface. Like Noah has like a little typeface, even got a bigger one. Why? Why? It's a little bit extreme.
very much agree that
Did you know that she could call her pocket? I was like, yeah. And then.
we start getting this stuff. And we start getting this. Whether it's, maybe not business, maybe it was a piercing touch, but it can become easy more like a social touch. And this also,
No.
well, we got yours.
It's okay, we're gonna take a picture with Abuna. Stay seated. And we're gonna take a picture this way. Okay? But we're gonna try to maybe get closer. Just stay seated, but get closer so because I don't think I can go that far back. I think I'm gonna get to a limiting point. I can't go back anymore. Panorama? Seems like Mark is the next one. Oh, you wanna do? I don't have a phone. iPhone. You got your smartphone?
That's like the
Okay,
result
where's
of
the-
the marriage retreat about herself.
Okay, can we stand? Just stay where you are, but stand.
That's a well, just kind of everybody just kind of swishing out.
What I need.
Miriam, come Stand up, stand up. Okay, stay right there then, don't move. Actually, that works for you. Who's that? Susan? Come to your right. Even Susan, come to your right. Are you sure? Yeah. So you're gonna hide? Yeah. There you go. Very nice. Now she wants to share. Okay, I'll take one here. I'll do a request and then we'll switch.
I've done it before. I've actually shown up twice in the same company.
The wife is right there.
Huh?
Yeah. What?
Very good.
Yeah,
Go
Mary,
stand-
can
go
you come
stand
over
next to
there
her.
on that side? All the way at the end.
And I'll meet you. This is slick.
Oh, that's funny.
Genius.
I see what you mean.
No.
He's doing a panorama.
You're gonna hold still and say cheese. One,
What do you
two,
want to know?
three. Cheese. All right, George, you're out. You may have other opinions.
Nobody move, nobody move.
That's genius.
No way that's a picture.
Yeah, so when he's George.
So you guys can't move in the middle.
Okay.
Okay, and
When
put
you
two
move,
chairs.
when you look back, it detected it as a new
Two
picture.
chairs, yeah. I think that's side by side. It's a process improvement.
No, this is more fun. This is more fun. This is more fun.
Stubborn.
Very stubborn. That this will work.
It's no longer. There we go. Don't move. Don't move. Abunas, we're gonna switch up with you guys. Abuna, we don't move.
Okay.
Just like surgery.
Got it.
Amazing. Amazing. Actually, that's. Send it, go guys. Yeah, send it. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
I did?
That's okay. I can Photoshop it, don't worry.
Okay.
I'll edit and send.
If you get Photoshop, can you make me look slimmer? while you're at it. Can you make me blonde?
I'll send it.
In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. We are in our last stretch of this two-day retreat. I know there are a lot to take in, lots to think about, which is good to take in. Nothing changes overnight, and I'll show you a video at the end about, change is good. Change is not easy, but it's doable. Just you have to be intentional about it. Now we get into conflict resolution. So have you thought of a conflict that you might have that isn't too big? Yeah? So I want you to turn to your workbook, and you'll find that in the workbook there is something called conflict resolution, the 10-step model. It's on page 9. On page 9. This says page 9 in the file. So, conflict resolution. As you may have heard, conflicts, 50% of conflicts, as they say, get resolved when people begin and start to listen to one another. Hence, the way we've been robotically, mechanically, trying to listen and suspend our own thoughts in order to listen to the other person, paraphrase that, check, then have a chance to say how you feel about this and so on. Now with conflict resolution, this is one of many models. This model has been used a lot. It works really well. You can make it work in your family as well, in your relationship. What it really much says is the first thing you need to set a time and a place to talk. Most of us try to resolve our issues on the go. And on the go, it means you're distracted, you're thinking about many other things. It's not the easiest thing to have a clear mind and resolve a certain conflict when you are on the go. So the first thing this says is set a time and a place. So let's say you start an argument over something with your spouse, a big argument. I'm not saying you're going to use this every time you have a conflict, but when you couldn't resolve the conflict, this is a model that can help you move forward. But keep in mind that you need to focus on the issue. And sometimes when you're into an argument and there is an escalation, things are getting worse, the negative cycle is coming in, showing its muscles, getting bigger on your account. Your spouse isn't the enemy, but you begin to see them as the enemy. You begin to fight against your spouse rather than join together and fight against the interaction. The negative interaction that's trying to get bigger and stronger on your account. In the middle of that argument, and as it is escalating, sometimes people say, okay, I can't deal with this, and we leave. I can't deal with this, or I'm not going to talk about this now, or you go out and shut the door and leave. How does that feel to your spouse? It feels like abandonment. It feels like they're left lonely by themselves, to hang dry. You could take time out. So people would say, hold on, is there a way we could actually stop the argument or stop the escalation? Yes, there is. You can take a time out. But here's the key. Whoever will call for the time out is responsible to set a time to come back again and talk about this. So, if let's say, remind me of your name, please. George. I'm in a conflict with George, and we're arguing, and it's getting heated, and I want to take the time out. Usually, I would say, George, I'm not going to talk about this. This, to George, feels like he's not valuable to me, I'm abandoning him, he's no good, I hate him, I don't want to talk to him. George is not going to feel very good. He's going to come nag. He's going to come after me. Or, he's going to throw his hands in the air and says, you know what, there's really no hope in this. But here I want to take a time out and say, listen, George, this is getting really heated. I think we should take a time out. So why don't we cool down for, let's say, an hour, and I will text you or I will call you to meet up again. Then I'm the one calling for the time out. I'm the one who's taking on the ownership and the responsibility to do what? To resume this. Should it go to the kids or should it go to our vacation? We haven't been seeing eye to eye over this. how about we discuss this on Thursday, this coming Thursday? We have more time. We'll go out, have coffee around maybe 6 or so after dinner, and we'll sit in a place not too busy, but again, not too quiet. So just a place where we could sit down and talk. Could be the backyard, or it could be out in a coffee shop, or at a park at that time, and we'll talk about it. So the first thing is to set the time and the place. The second thing is to state what the problem is. So how would you state the problem that I presented? What is the problem? Someone put it in words for me.
Disagreement how to use the money.
Yeah, we have a disagreement on how to use the money. And the next point is, how am I contributing to that problem? You see that point? I think it's point 3. Is it point 3? Point 4? So, yeah, point 3. List the ways you each contribute to that problem. Now, here's where couples usually, it's easier for them to tell their partner how they're contributing to the problem. But I'm inviting you to look at yourself. Why? Obviously, if I'm not part of this issue, it would be no problem. So I have a role. I'm playing a role in making this an issue. So if I want, let's say, to put the money towards the kids, because, we haven't really put the money as we should, and, education is getting expensive, and I just heard from my sister, and she's had such trouble with her kids when they got into university, and I got so scared and all that. How am I contributing to the problem? By wanting the money to go to an RESP, for example. I am insisting, based out of fear, from an experience that I've had with my sister, to put this money towards the education because I'm worried. My worrying and my fear is making me rigid. That's how I'm contributing to the problem. How is my spouse contributing to the problem? She can say how. The next step, list past ways, previous ways you've tried to solve this issue and did not work. So we tried to argue about this and just each one of us to stick to our points. We've been playing find the bad guy type of interaction, this and that. The ways you've tried and it hasn't worked. Or, I talked to her mom about this and got her mom to talk to her, or vice versa. I talked to my parents and my parents got involved, and that created even a bigger problem for us. That's not working. And then the next and most critical step of that 10-step model is you brainstorm 10 new ways of going about solving that issue. So for example, do you remember that grid I had on conflict resolution? Accommodating, avoiding. So you can use any of that except aggression. You say, okay, let me think. Maybe we can take 20% or 10% of that fund and put it towards the kids, and 80% towards vacation. We can do 50-50. Here's another idea. Or this year, we're going to put it towards vacation. Next year, all of it will go towards the kids. Or, okay, you know what? I'm going to sell my car, and I'm going to buy a cheaper car, and I'm going to, they depreciate anyways, so I'm going to take some of that money towards the vacation, put all this money towards the kids. You see how we're coming up, me and my imaginary spouse, we're coming up with all these new ideas. This is the part where you actually come together, and you're thinking of new ideas together. Now, as you come up with those, do not debunk and do not cancel any idea. So do not start analyzing, oh, no, this is not going to work because this is, no. This is the part where you just open for all ideas. And you come up with 10. After you come up with 10, both of you talk about picking one of those 10. One of them. And here's where I strongly suggest you don't make a conflict out of picking one of the 10. Okay? They're all your ideas. Together, pick one of the 10. And say, most likely, you can discuss them and analyze them, and then come up with one or two ideas and say, now this is the one we're going to try this time. And then you write, how are you going to be contributing towards that solution? So, okay, I'm going to be asking, I have a financial analyst who's a friend of mine. I'm going to be calling him and I'm going to be checking, what would be the best investment we can do for next year or for this year. And you're going to be making sure you look for vacation spots that we're going to go to. So each one, how you're both going to work together in that solution you picked out of the 10. And that is step number, I think, 8. Number 9, you set up another meeting to discuss your progress. You say, okay, so let's start this, and we'll meet next week to see how we're doing, how we've done. And we'll meet in 2 weeks and see how we've done. And then the most important again is that last step. Reward each other for working together on this. So you buy, let's say, each other something to drink, something to eat. You kind of reward each other by spending quality time together. Whatever it is, you actually say, thank you. A simple thank you, you can do it. You have to reward one another for actually working on this together. The beauty of this is that whatever solution you're going to come out with isn't his or hers. It's ours. Ours. And that is so strong and so powerful. Okay? So any questions on this model before I get you to turn to each other trying to work through this? I warn you, do not use a strong conflict. The first time around, you want this to work for you over something simpler, then you can apply it to something that is harder. The more you work together and succeed, the more confident you are and have the attitude and desire to succeed. And it works also against you. The more you come hard on yourselves and think, we're not good with this, we're not good with this, the harder it gets to do anything good in the relationship. Okay, so make it work for you, not against you. Any questions? "15 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, let's wrap up. As I see, it is time to wrap up. So, any quick thoughts? We're gonna finish by 3 o'clock with this movie. So, just a clip. Any thoughts on the process? I tried to pass by, couldn't get to everyone. Any thoughts on the process?
It was good.
Good.
It was helpful.
Helpful. In what way?
It kept it neutral, kept the kind of the emotion out of it, especially when you're just following the
Some steps, yeah, put the emotions a
All
little
about the
bit
mechanics.
aside. What's that?
It's all about the mechanics, right?
It's all about the mechanics, the robotics that we've installed in you, the software of building a robot. It's good, it's working. Good. What else? Any thoughts? Any other thoughts? Was it difficult? For some, it could have been difficult, but that's normal. It is the first time to use this. And don't forget, even though you're trying to do this mechanically, there is a background to the issue. So that could, cause a bit of issues here. That's okay. As long as you try, you work it through, you try and succeed in it, and you will be. So let me wrap up by saying 2 days of communication retreat, it's not going to cut it for you. It just puts you, maybe it redirects your thoughts a little bit, maybe puts you on the first step. But if you're like most couples, you probably want more of this. You want more of this training. You would like maybe to read a book. Lasting Promise is a great book. The book by St. John Chrysostom is a wonderful book for marriage. And there are other titles that I've also shared with Abuna on the love languages, as I'm sure some of you have read, and a book called Hold Me Tight by Sue Johnson, and so on. There are many other things that can be useful for you. If we could just go around, tell me one thing you're taking home with you. One thing you're taking home with you. I'm going to start, so I'm going to put you on the spot here. Anybody, I'm going to start over here. One thing, the first thing that comes.
The Google search.
The Google search, yeah, the cache.
No, to definitely set aside a specific time during the week where we just meet. To start off with something practical like once a week, and then hopefully get that to be more often.
Excellent.
Date night.
Date nights.
I agree, date night, and do not laugh when she's holding the chair.
Okay. I didn't have to teach that.
The graph with the accommodating, aggressive,
The
assertive.
styles of communication or conflict resolution, Mark.
There's a lot of good things. I think the date night, actually, the idea of date night, or regularly scheduled date night,
Mhm.
weekly is even better.
Yeah, you are a romantic group.
It's a relationship, not a trial.
It's a relationship, not a child. Yes.
I love the intent to learn.
The intent to learn, yes. Permits learn. I love that. Yes,
For me, the date night.
the date night.
Just, I guess, going about things in a structured way to try to solve an issue.
Yeah, structure could definitely help. When things are, they need a little bit of organization, definitely. Great, yes. What are you taking home with you?
Definitely big nights.
The date nights. You're all agreeing on the date nights. That's very good. Yours. I can come back to you. I don't want to put people on the spot, but it really should be something that caught your attention, that gave you an aha moment, like we say. So I'll come back to you. Barbara? Yes.
I think one of the things that I really liked was just the assertiveness. Just say what you mean, what you say, be upfront.
Yes, and the question on how do you build that skill, you apply it. And there is an exercise for you. So there's a question, how do you build that skill? You keep applying it. And there is an exercise there that I left in for you. Please, do that exercise on your own. It is quite helpful to just be able to say I statements. I feel this way, I think this way, and no need to feel defensive. Your partner doesn't have to see it the way you see it, but you see it the way you see it. That's a boundary. Okay?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
We do that a lot. We're like,
Yes.
is that example about like going out?
Yeah.
What do you think?
What do you think?
Oh, okay, we don't do it.
I'm like, just say what you want. Just
Yeah.
say what you want to do.
The best thing to do things is to model it. So I'm going to say what I want to say in a loving manner and a respectful way. Okay, what have you done?
Not finding the bad guy.
Not finding the bad guy. That's one of what we call the demon dialogues. Demon dialogues. It's a negative interaction. Very good. John.
I went into my
Yeah.
inbox, I'm sorry.
Okay, well that's a good one to take home.
The differences in how, she communicates and how I communicate, and how her brain works and my brain works differently in understanding.
And an insight into that can help you communicate better. Okay.
Abuna, I think caught my attention one thing you mentioned. You gave an example, but I think it can be applied to many things. Many times we got hung up on little issues when the root cause of the problem is a value.
Right.
And you gave an excellent example about budgets.
Yes.
When you say maybe the main problem sometimes is not the budget.
Yes.
Because we don't agree on the value of money.
Right. There's a value, there's a meaning, there's a feeling, there is a thought, facts. The deeper you go, the harder it gets. You know how we make fun of sometimes how people get upset and a marriage problem and they're going to get divorced because the new table they bought, they're not in agreement whether to put it this way or that way. It has nothing to do with, we trivialize the issue. The issue isn't whether it be put this way or that way, it's the meaning and the value behind why I want it this way versus why I want it that way. And it could be something like, she doesn't respect my opinion. So it's much deeper. It's never about the table. And it's never about the stuff on the outside. Yes.
I like the steps to follow to resolve the conflicts.
Yes, the
How to go-
10-step
yeah,
model.
yeah,
It's a-
yeah.
yes.
Me too.
Yeah?
I really liked it. It
Okay.
makes it easier for you to follow certain steps, to communicate better. You know what to expect. We agree on something.
Yes.
We don't have to disagree how to solve the issue. We agree on this. That's
For sure.
Yeah, it's mostly to how to understand each other more and work on our differences.
Great. Lily.
This perspective on the negative loops.
The negative interaction. Your husband, your wife, is not the enemy. It is not the enemy you need to put your efforts against. It's actually that third entity called the negative cycle. If you're able to catch it, see it, call it out, work against it.
I love the image of the interpretation and action.
The grid.
Yeah.
Yes. And you know where to break it. Very good.
I'm split between two. I definitely like the search and explore more personal
And then to explore, yeah.
And then the one about identifying and talking to the child.
I like the identifying if something's a feeling versus a fact.
Yes.
Because it helps to understand how to react. And I liked how to use that to be assertive as well.
Great. Sam. Is that right, Sam?
Yes.
Sam. Anything you want to share?
I learned a lot, Abuna, and I like your style that you're making it very interesting and interactive. So it's not like a dry lecture and that's it. So
Good.
yes, and the spouse is not the enemy.
Yes.
I like that.
Abunas, would you like to say, highlight anything?
All of the above.
All of the above. None of the above? Okay, now, having said all that he said in 2 days, I want you to know change is possible, but change is not a switch on-off. Change is not a switch on-off. It takes intention and effort and patience and encouragement and working together. So what I'm about to show you is quite the opposite, where people expect things to change like this. So I don't know if you've seen this one, but it's quite funny. This is just to say, take your time, work together, don't give up. And don't expect this.
Dr. Switzer?
Yes, come in. I'm just washing my hands.
I'm Catherine Bigman. Janet Carlisle referred me.
Oh, yes. You're the one
Yes, that's me. Should I lay down?
Oh, no, don't do that. Just have tea. And And let me tell you a bit about our billing. I charge $5 for the first 5 minutes, and then absolutely nothing after that. How does that sound?
That sounds great. Too good to be true, as a matter of fact.
Well, I can almost guarantee you that our session won't last the full 5 minutes. Now, we don't do any insurance billing, so you will either have to pay in cash or by check.
Wow, okay.
And I don't make change.
All right.
And this, go.
Go.
Well, tell me about the problem that you wish to address.
Oh, okay. Well, I have this fear of being buried alive in a box. I start thinking about being buried alive and I begin to panic.
Has anyone ever tried to bury you alive in a box?
No, but truly thinking about it does make my life horrible. I mean, I can't go through tunnels or be in an elevator or in a house, anything boxy.
So what you're saying is you're claustrophobic?
Yes, that's it.
All right, well, let's go, Catherine. I'm going to say 2 words to you right now. I want you to listen to them very, very carefully. Then I want you to take them out of the office with you and incorporate them into your life.
So I write them down?
Well, if it makes you comfortable, it's just 2 words. We find most people can remember.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay, you're there.
Stop it!
Stop it!
Stop it?
Yes, S-T-O-P, new word, I-T.
So what are you saying?
You know, it's funny. I say 2 simple words, and I cannot tell you the amount of people who say exactly the same thing you're saying. I mean, this is not Yiddish, Catherine. This is it. Stop it.
So I should just stop it.
There you go. I mean, you don't want to go through life being scared of being buried alive in a box, do you? I mean, that sounds frightening. Then stop it.
I can't. I mean, it's been with me since childhood.
No, we don't go there. Just stop.
So I should just stop being afraid of being buried alive in a box.
You got it. Good girl. Well, it's only been 3 minutes, so that will be $3.
Actually, I only have a 5, so.
Well, I don't make change.
I guess I'll take the full 5 minutes.
Fine. All right. What other problems would you like to address?
I'm bulimic. I stick my fingers down my throat.
Stop it! Not of some kind? Don't do that.
But I'm compelled to. My mom used to call me fat.
No, we don't go there.
But I didn't.
No, we don't go there either.
But my horoscope did say.
We definitely don't go there. Yes, stop it. What else?
Well, I have self-destructive relationships with men.
Stop it! You want to be with a man, don't you?
Yes.
Well, then stop it. Don't be such a big baby.
I wash my hands a lot.
That's all right. I wash my hands all the time. There's a lot of germs on them. Yeah, don't worry about that one.
I'm afraid to drive.
Well, stop it! How are you going to get around? Get in the car and drive, you kook. Stop it! Stop it!
You stop it!
What's the problem yet?
I don't like this. I don't like this therapy at all. You're just telling me to stop it.
All right, then let me give you 10 words that I think will clear everything up for you. You want to get a pad and pencil for this one?
Right.
Ready? Right here are the 10 words. Stop it or I'll bury you alive in a
So, you wish life was that easy, right? So, be patient, work together, and stop it! Right? May the Lord bless you, bless your lives, and hopefully you can take home some of the stuff you said and think about it again. The PowerPoint will be with Abuna, God willing, this week, probably by Monday or Tuesday, and you can always access those slides.
Thank you so much, Abuna. On behalf of everyone, I just want to extend my thanks to Abuna for coming all the way from Canada to here for just attend our retreat. We are blessed to have you, Abuna, and we definitely would like to have this on an annual basis. So please don't book anything next July or June around the same time.
Stop.
Stop. What do you mean? You're going to bury me alive? That's not very Christian-like. Just another thing, Abuna, we just want to thank you on behalf of Abuna Suriel and myself and all of the couples here. This is just a small token of our love. The rest of it will come in the email. So expect something in the email that's even better than what I just given you. So
thank you so much.
And
pleasure.
Thank you so much. Just a few last minute things. If you still have your card, please drop it off at the front desk. And please, when you go pick up your kids, the servants have done such a great job, I think over and beyond my expectation. If you share the same feeling, please show them by just saying thank you. Because this has only been possible because the kids were not here. Or the other couple of things that are happening, we're thinking about having a parenting retreat in 6 months. So this was marriage retreat. We're actually thinking of purely just for parents as well in 6 months. So in 6 months' time, we're thinking of having something similar to this, but for parenting, explicitly for parenting. And then after that, we're going to have another marriage retreat. So basically every 6 months, you're going to have either a parenting retreat or a marriage retreat. I feel very strongly about this specific service because I feel like there's a gap. We don't focus enough on the marriage, and we definitely don't focus enough on the parenting. And hopefully, as we keep going through this, having someone like Abuna coming on an annual basis and same thing for parenting that will enrich our lives. Any other last minute feedback for me, or how this retreat went, or what would you do differently, or good things, bad things? We always appreciate your feedback because we always want to make sure that we're doing even better the next time.
This was amazingly organized. It was so wonderful. Just everything from the retreat and then just during the retreat and with the kids and everything else. I mean, it blew him away.
Great time.
It was next year, maybe not on Father's Day weekend.
Yeah.
Like if we left the fathers behind.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
No, but it was fine, but that's the only recommendation I would have, is not on Father's Day weekend.
Yeah, I actually realized this on Father's Day almost like a month before it happened. Because when we go back and forth to find a date that accommodates Abuna, once there's a date and we're all good and we clear it up, and it's like whatever it is, just come. So, but it's a good point, thank you. And obviously I can't take the full, gratitude. There's a lot of servants that were part of this, and there's a lot of people that have worked tirelessly to get this all organized. So thank you for that feedback.
Thank you.
Any other feedback? Positive, negative? Go ahead.
Yeah, Abuna truly cannot think of anything negative. I think we're all impressed with the organization, with the practicality, how feasible it is, the time slot. It makes it really very efficient and very practical for everyone to come and enjoy many great things.
Thank you, Faith. Thank you. Dina, sorry.
Thank you for everything you've done. You
Okay.
using the app, I think really, I have conscientiously to say this is one of the best inventions I've ever been to. The only thing that I wanted to add, it's not a negative feedback, but we can make it longer. Because
Longer,
it's very
okay.
short, like 4 hours is just,
Okay.
enjoyed it very much that we wanted to get it.
So would you suggest 2 nights and 3 days?
Yeah.
2 nights, 3 days, okay?
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay. We'll need more servants because I think the servants are, they're maxed out.
They're maxed out, yeah.
I think we need a new crew every day to come in and move on. Yeah, look, I think, like I said this before the retreat and I said it during the retreat and I'm going to keep saying it. Having a good kids program can allow us to do so much. We can't do anything if we don't focus on that. And in my vision, the success of this was not based on the feedback from the couples, but the feedback from the kids. If the kids had fun, then the parents are okay with it. If the kids didn't have fun and the parents were okay with it, the parents are not going to come again. So thank God the kids are having fun and everything is safe, so everything went well. Anything else? Okay, now the love of God the Father, the grace of the only begotten Son, our Lord God and Savior Jesus Christ, the gift and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit, will be all go in peace, and the peace of the Lord be with you.
Oh yeah, congratulations. Amazing. Yeah. Great job, Yeah, for sure. It's all